How many people have you heard that say, I get the flu shot, then I get the flu? If you don't have your health, what do you have?
You are a functional medicine doctor.
Join us as we blend modern and ancient wisdoms to be well now.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. Someone coughing?
It is flu season, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder how everyone's going to protect their lungs this season.
That sounds miserable. Hey, it occurred to me as a curious human and possibly patient of yours, Dr. Ron Dummar, that not everybody's going to be into the flu shot.
Oh, for sure.
And that's a discussion with your healthcare provider. But if you're like, how can I harness the natural power of plants to prevent or nourish my lungs? Because the flu is an infection of the lungs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a respiratory infection. COVID-19 is very similar to it's a respiratory infection. It's where it elicits. It's initiated that way. It's transferred via air droplets. So yeah, it affects your lung first. Your body actually has a variety of different immune regulating patterns or immune regulating mechanisms to it. So your skin is one of those immune regulating mechanisms. You dig in the dirt, you swim around, you come in contact with different types of bacteria all over the place. Well, the lungs, just like your skin protects you, your lungs are designed to protect you as well. And sometimes the makeup of the lung is affected negatively by something you come in contact with.
So lung health is huge as we get into, kids getting sick and COVID and flu. And I know how much you believe in plants and their power to heal. And so we were going to talk about plants that folks out there might want to take as supplements or could know about that would help their lung health through the winter months.
Absolutely. I wanted to talk about just 5 plants today, and there are hundreds of plants. And I have a variety of different formulas and things that I've put together depending on your lung condition that are specific to whether it's a wet cough or productive cough or a dry cough, if you have blood in your sputum. There's a variety of different things that we can provide and herbals that will be very specific to treating those very specific complaints and symptoms. But today I wanted to cover 5, and we'll do this as long as it's of interest to people. I have many more that we can cover as well. But today we'll cover the 5, and the 5 I wanted to cover were licorice root, astragalus.
I've heard of astragalus, I think.
Yeah. Ginseng.
Maybe. Ginseng.
Yeah, so astragalus is sometimes also called huang qi. Some people call it huang qi.
Okay.
And it's sold that way. Sometimes there's like dongui is angelica root, but some places you'll see it, even in the United States, it's actually sold as dongui, and people refer to it as dongui. They think that's the English name. That's actually the Chinese, American version of the Chinese name.
If you heard these words and you were like, what is this guy talking about? I'm intrigued. Now would be a great time to think, what could I do with that curiosity? I think you should subscribe to the channel.
Oh my gosh.
Leave a
like
5-star review. The amount of years and the amount of patience that you have spent time with studying this stuff, it's like you're about to get some wisdom, folks. So just, support the channel so we can keep supporting you.
Absolutely. And if you want to hear more of these things, if you want to hear more about lung health, then just subscribe. We're here for you.
It helps us. It's a cycle. Okay, so we've got more herbs.
Ginseng is another one we said. So licorice root, astragalus, ginseng, curcumin. We're going to talk about curcumin. And there's one that I wanted to throw in there that is a really not a well-known herb. Okay, it's called cinnamominin, and that is the ingredient within a Japanese plant. Okay, so we'll talk briefly about that and how that can benefit lung health. And the reality is most of you are probably not going to be able to have access at this point to that. At some point in time, that those herbs may come more available to us. But certainly...
Well, I'm hearing these herbs. They mean nothing to me yet.
Yes.
If I didn't want to get a flu shot, but I wanted to supplement now, what could I do today? Can we start there and then get into the weeds?
Well,
or is that just way too general of a question?
Well, you're,
if it's such a general question, though, how can you get one shot? And people think this way.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The flu shot, people say, okay, I'm going to go get the flu shot and I'm going to be protected. Well, how many people have you heard that say, I get the flu shot, then I get the flu? And that happens all the time. So people get the flu shot, then they get the flu. And so the explanation is, well, the strain, there's constantly shifting strains, and that's because the flu is a virus. From the very beginning, it's been a virus, and a virus is essentially a code and a makeup of DNA that literally injects its DNA into your cell in order to hijack the cell and spread itself throughout your body. And your immune system has to recognize what that virus is doing and then combat an offensive towards it. And that's how it protects you. And that's why I started out saying at the beginning of the podcast that we have certain immune regulating mechanisms in the body. The skin is one of them. So we have skin health, and then we have lung health. If you think your body is the most proximal exposure that you have to your entire environment, well, your lungs are the next, and your upper respiratory system. You're constantly breathing in and pulling in the external environment, which is the air, and exposing it to your lungs for a very specific reason. Well, we want to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide, and we want to continue to live and share all of that oxygen with every cell in your body. But with that, you also have the potential of pulling in mold spores. You have the potential of pulling in bacteria. You have the potential of pulling in viruses everywhere you go, all over. And your body is designed and equipped with the ability to regulate the immune health of your lungs. Your body's equipped to protect yourself and fortify yourself against your local environment. So when you're in, dust and you're in a variety of different things, is it good to cover your nose and your mouth? Well, yeah, it's good to not overexpose your body to something that could be nefarious or problematic for your lungs. So that would be, I would say, the first recommendation. And this is
what's the first recommendation?
Is to protect yourself, right, in wise ways against exposures.
Okay.
But also you have
even though our bodies are naturally equipped to fight off.
Absolutely.
What happens, it's best
you don't want to run around exposing yourself to everything just because, right? Like, oh, let me do this. And the reality is, if your immune system's already upregulated and your lungs are already challenged trying to fight something off, and you expose it to another pathogen which attempts to break down and through the barrier of the immune system in the lungs, well, now you're fighting on two fronts, right? And if you think of it like a military action, you start fighting on two fronts, you start fighting on three fronts, eventually you just can't contain it anymore, and then they invade and you have an infection, okay? So we're trying to be wise about our exposures as well. I think COVID-19 helped a lot of people to think more about how we can get exposed and to think more about, should I really be going to work when my nose is running and I'm coughing, right? Or should I be taking a rest day? And employers as well, to be more aware of those things that can occur within the workplace and the spreading that can occur that way. We became intimately aware during COVID.
Right. So common sense.
But now the reality of it though too is that you should not live your life in fear. You should not live it in fear that, okay, because someone coughed next to me or because someone's sniffling next to me, I'm obviously going to get sick and this is a problem, right? So you have to fortify yourself, right? So if you want to live in a way in life that you can interact and engage with less fear or without fear, then what are you going to do? Well, the flu shot for a lot of people is their means of having less fear. So then the question comes, how many of you get the flu shot and don't get the flu? That's that whole thing. We just went full circle, right? So if that is your means of protection and you feel like that's perfectly viable for you, that is absolutely an acceptable form. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. But what we're going to provide for you today are herbals that are going to support and fortify your lungs, your innate protective mechanism that your body has before the flu shot was invented, before the flu shot even existed for millennia. The lungs were perpetuating health, which actually enabled all of us to be here. All of us that were here prior to the invention of the flu shot, which 100 years ago, 140 years ago, okay? Prior to the invention of the flu shot, every single one of us had DNA that was propagated that now led to us being here on Earth without the flu shot. So is it possible to live on Earth without a flu shot, without a vaccine? The answer is yes. Can the lungs establish a form of health to propagate itself into the future? The answer is yes. Can it do that without a vaccine? The answer is yes. Okay. Am I promoting and suggesting that you should not get vaccines? No, that's a discussion that you have to have with your care provider in a room, right? You decide for you and yourself with your care provider if that is the right route for you. This is the route that I love to take, and we have many routes. This is the route that I love to take, and that's plants, because I feel like plants are lending to us knowledge that we don't have on our own. Plants have learned to survive and thrive in the environment, and they're going to lend you that knowledge to be able to fight off diseases, to fight off ailments. They have antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory properties. These plants have these properties and this intelligence that they deliver to our bodies, and all we have to do is consume them.
So what's the most accessible supplement here that you think, or what's the best
licorice
one?
root.
Okay.
Licorice root. Everybody, I mean, it's probably one of the most prescribed.
Like candy licorice?
No, not candy licorice.
Just joking, guys.
But that's where candy licorice came from, and it was such a beneficial treatment and therapeutic that licorice. We said, hey, we should just start giving licorice and having people eat licorice common, right? Like commonly, every day, frequently. And so how do you get licorice to the population at large? Licorice root? Well, you make it sweeter, right?
Right.
And so eventually somewhere we went off the rails where now it's mostly sugar and wheat, and there's really not any true licorice root in it. But yes, in the beginning, licorice root was there because of its means of health. It actually is a digestive. It helps with the digestive system as well. It's an anti-inflammatory. It will settle a stomach. It will calm down inflammation in the gut and the GI. But also it will reduce the secretion of inflammatory chemicals in the lungs. Okay? So that's amazing. Licorice root. So if you can go to any store where they sell quality herbals or quality supplements, and you can find a good quality licorice root there. Now, my recommendation would be to find yourself a local practitioner, someone who practices Chinese medicine, somebody who practices functional medicine or integrative medicine that has a degree of some sort, or has put in his time, or is an herbalist and has done a level of training that is suggestive that he has more experience, right? So I would go to that type of a person and ask for their recommendations, because your symptoms may have a variety to them that needs a little bit more or could use licorice root plus. So what else might you want? Licorice root. Well, another one is astragalus. Astragalus in Chinese medicine is called huang qi. Huang qi it's kind of an astringer, meaning it will hold things in, right? It will protect the barrier of things. It will protect the wall of things, you could say. It's like a great defense mechanism, huang qi. Astringer, you think about it, the cell protector. So what huang qi does, it actually literally increases the viability of the cell and the tight junctions that play a role in exchanging nutrients in the cell. So that's what huang qi does. We call it an astringent generally too, in health or in herbalism.
Do you offer a supplement with all this stuff in it?
Yes.
Is this Broncho Heal that's on the table?
So Broncho Heal.
Okay.
Now, Broncho Heal has a variety of different herbs as well in it, and we'll be talking about some of these other herbs in future podcasts as well. But Broncho Heal is one of my favorite formulas that I use as a initial mechanism to protect lung health. So I'll give Broncho Heal to people. We've used Broncho Heal to treat bronchitis, pneumonia. We use it for even just the flu, a typical respiratory condition.
Preventative as well?
Yeah, I usually tell people not to take, when I say prevention with herbals, I don't like people to take them every day. I don't think that's a great idea. Maybe you can take certain herbals every day. What I mean by that is don't take the same one every single day. Let's put it that way. So if you're doing something for prevention, it should probably be 2 to 4 times a week. Okay. There are homeopathic options that you can employ as well that you could be taking on like a monthly basis. And we'll talk about in a future podcast, homeoprophylaxis, which is another thing that you can do. You can treat yourself or even immunize yourself homeoprophylactically for pertussis, for measles, for mumps, all sorts of things, right? Okay, but pertussis being more of like the lung and the whooping cough. So any of those type of things, these herbals will help with. My children, obviously, I spent many nights where they would wake up, they'd have a cough, their throat would be sore, they have a fever. One thing that we would do frequently is we would get them in a shower. And, we'd get into a shower together and I'd hold them and I'd have them breathe. And breathing the water into their lungs is quite helpful because it helps to dislodge some of the infection that's happening in there. And sometimes they can cough that up and clear it. And other times it remains lodged there. So you need more support than that. Well, one step you can take on top of that shower is you can put some oil. So people love to do peppermint, or they'll have melaleuca, tea tree oil, different things like that, even lime oil. So you can put oil on the floor of the shower if you're using a shower, and that will mist up into the steam that's coming off. So if you're holding your child, you're concerned about lung or whooping cough related issues, get them in a steam shower. And if you don't have time or aren't interested in getting into a shower, then you can use like a diffuser, you can use a humidifier, you can use the stove with a water in a pan on the stove. You can heat it up and put some oils in there and let it mist throughout the room or throughout the kitchen, and have the child hopefully playing in that area so that they breathe in those medicines. So all of those things are going to be beneficial. Those are tips and strategies that people can implement to be able to prevent, especially for children, lung issues from propagating or furthering. Now, ginseng is another herbal. We've mentioned ginseng a lot. Ginseng is actually a bioenhancer as well. A number of these herbals that we mentioned are going to be bioenhancers because what do? They improve the body's ability to be sensitive to certain medications or other treatments or therapeutics, right, if they're implemented. In these cases, we're saying these herbals have a significant impact on physiology to protect the barrier of the lung, which is the immune barrier, and prevent it from going internal further, okay? So with ginseng plays an interesting role. It plays an interesting role because each of these have an activating effect or an inactivating effect to certain aspects of lung health. And ginseng happens to be an activator. So it activates a process we call autophagy. Okay? So autophagy essentially is like the clearance, the elimination of how we detoxify our heavy metals, chemicals, processes, things from the body. It could even be pathogens from the body. Ginseng is an activator of autophagy. And so you would want to have ginseng in a herbal formula if you wanted to, essentially in this case, improve the clearance or the detoxification, the elimination of pathogens from the lung. What do you think so far?
Well,
We've done
I'm
3.
interested in autophagy because I feel like that happens when you fast, but I feel like if you're body's under stress, you probably don't want too much stress, right? Like I've heard that you shouldn't go for a heavy fast if you're feeling run down and sick.
That's absolutely right.
Because it can be very stressful for the body. So I wonder if autophagy is what you want if you're already under attack by the flu.
Yeah,
that's what I thought, not knowing anything about this world, but hearing buzzwords.
No, that's a really good way of thinking about it. And what I want you to do is to think about how you feel naturally when you get ill.
Like garbage?
Yeah, and do you feel like you want to eat?
When you're really sick, no.
No, you don't. Your
when
body
you're really sick.
But your body naturally tells you to fast. Okay? Your body's saying to you, it's time to fast. We're going to jump into autophagy. We're going to go through and we're going to clean things out. Okay?
So the body actually wants to be.
Your body wants to not have so many. When you put food into it in general, when you're putting food into it, and it's just random food from wherever, it's not specific, these are medicines, right, that we would put in, and when they're prescribed from a physician, they have specific points that they want to impact physiology, right? But in general, your body's saying, hey, hold on. Let's take a moment back. Let's reset. Let's initiate autophagy. And autophagy has a harder time if we're constantly just eating and full. And we need to be in more of a fasting state to be able to clear and reach autophagy. So what if we could actually take herbals on a regular basis that it could either activate autophagy or inactivate autophagy? And they had a working mechanism that they would play on certain pathways within the body, and that's what these herbals do. So there are different pathways, like an LPS, which is initiation of inflammation that occurs. Okay, it's like a polysaccharide induced inflammatory process or cascade, and so these herbals will actually act in regulating that inflammatory process. Well, if we have herbals that affect or impact the lung and help the health of the lung, and we can impact inflammation to the lung as well, we could potentially treat asthma. We could potentially treat other allergic-related histamine-induced conditions, right? So these apply not just to lung-specific conditions, but some of these even apply to widespread inflammatory conditions. One of the inflammatory conditions that we all became very aware of during COVID was the ACE2 ACE2-induced cytokine storm, where inflammation just started to ramp up and be widespread, and there was hardly any, if at all, any resolution for it. Well, herbals can influence and impact your body's responses to inflammation. So through activating or deactivating autophagy, and ginseng is one of those that actually activates the autophagy. So it can attenuate inflammation in the body.
Give me some ginseng. That's what I'm saying.
Right?
All right, what's next?
Well, let's go to curcumin, and then we'll finish with the little to not unknown one. Okay.
Sounds exciting.
You're right. So curcumin.
Can you just give me all these in one supplement now? Or do I have to know all this? I'm just wondering, can you just give me a pill or a powder that I can drink every day that will fortify my body? Or is it just not that simple?
I can't. Well, we can. You want the same powder every single day. I'm not going to do that for you.
I want the flu shot, but I want it to feel more natural.
I'm going to follow you. You and I are a team, right? So I'm going to follow your body and your physiology. And the problem is you're interacting and engaging in your environment, and you have cues that are changing the way that your physiology is happening, right? Your immune system might be ramping up, but it's ramping up in a certain way. And if we catch that, as a physician, we could say, oh, we need to address it with these herbals, right? And if you're taking the same herbals every day, is that helpful? Well, it's not harmful. if you're taking, some people, they love to do probiotics. And I say this is the same thing with probiotics. Don't take the same probiotics every single day. Remember, they're biotics. And if you just keep giving the same biotics, you're supposed to have tens of thousands of different species of biotics. And if you keep giving the same 5 strands of biotics, same 12 strands of biotics every single day, well, what you're really doing is increasing your limited strands of biotics to potentially overwhelm all the other strands of biotics. And so you want to be giving yourself a variety of different strains throughout the day or throughout the year, throughout the seasons, okay? So how does that apply to food? How does it apply to what I'm teaching you as far as, can't you just give me an herbal that I can take every single day? How does that apply? It applies because everything we eat has a biotic culture. Everything we eat has biotics, okay? And so it shares with us its biotics. And we're able to look at that and be like, okay, do we take this? Is this going to be a helpful part of us? Or is it something we just need to pass along? We need to clear through. And so when we consume herbals, when we consume plants, they have biotic culture that integrally communicate with our bodies and our immune responses. Okay? So it's important to have variety and diversity. That's what we've had our entire existence.